Good morning, all. Whoa, I was a bit loud, sorry about that. We might get started. Sorry to break up the great networking that's happening right now. My name's Carl Hoffman, the Senior Manager of Strategy from the Indigenous Strategy and Services portfolio. It's my pleasure to run you through the event today, which is a really exciting event to look back on the achievements of the last 4 years of the One City, Many People strategy. A lot of you in this room have played a really big part in getting us to this stage as we begin the transition to a refreshed OSMP in 2025. But before we do that, it's really important to put pens down and do some reflection, celebrate where we've come from, what we've achieved, and then continue to build into the future. Before we get into it, as is our way, I'd like to invite Uncle Chika up to the stage to welcome us to country.
Good, thank you. Good morning, folks. My name is Charles Madden, but known around the inner city of Sydney as Chika. Now, that's a nickname that I got many, many years ago going to Redfern Public School, which is now NCIE, the National Centre of Indigenous Excellence. Folks, I'm from Gadigal land, Aboriginal land. That's the land we're on at the moment. For many, many years, I've lived and worked around the city of Sydney. I've been involved with quite a few Aboriginal organisations over the years. I've been a director with the Aboriginal Medical Service at Redfern for over 40 years. Also a director with the Redfern Aboriginal Housing Company, Aboriginal Hostels Australia, and the Metropolitan Local Aboriginal Land Council. I've got to mention it, folks. Also, a life member of the Redfern All Blacks Rugby League Football Club. Thank you. Folks, for many, many years I've lived and worked around the city of Sydney. I'd like to take this opportunity this morning to extend a warm and sincere welcome to all of my Aboriginal brothers and sisters, non-Aboriginal brothers and sisters. We have any brothers and sisters here from the Torres Strait or further afar across the seas. Welcome. Welcome to Gadigal land. The Gadigal clan is one of 29 that makes up the Eora Nation. The Eora Nation is bordered by 3 distinctive landmarks. We have the Hawkesbury River to the north, Nepean to the west, and the Georges River to the south. Those 3 rivers form the boundaries of the Eora Nation. Folks, if you've travelled across this great city of ours today, the state or this great country, or from afar, welcome. Welcome to Gadigal land. Enjoy your stay. Have a safe and trouble-free trip home. Once again, welcome. Welcome, welcome. Enjoy the day, folks. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Chika, for that, your warm welcome, and thank you for being a great friend to the university for so many years. The rest of the show, folks, we've broken this up into a couple of hours, and a couple of hours does not sound like a very long time to get through 4 years of success, but this is the challenge. We're going to get there together. I broke it already. Green button does not work. Oh, there we go. I don't know if that was me or those guys. We'll sort it out. This is how we're going to get through the next couple of hours. So we'll have a couple of addresses from our 2 fearless leaders, the Vice-Chancellor and Professor Jackson Pulver. And then we'll have a short video, break for some lunch, and come back for a couple of really targeted panel conversations. And that will sort of see us through to the end of the event. So being out of here by about 2:30. So with that, we'll get straight into it. If I could invite Professor Scott up to the stage for his opening address.
Well, thank you, Carl, and thanks to Uncle Chicka for the welcome to country. And can I also acknowledge traditional owners and the land in which we meet, the Gadigal people of Eora Nation, and pay my respect to elders past and present. Great opportunity to pause. It's been a busy year, you may have noticed. Walking around campus, it feels a little bit quieter. Exams are done. Students are gone. There's some intense activity to kind of get the year wrapped up, but it just feels a little bit quieter. I have my own mental checklist, one more parliamentary hearing I have to appear, one more Senate committee, one more Senate meeting proper. The year is working its way through. And it's great to just kind of grab these moments, to just stop for a minute and to think strategically through. I often think, you can have a lot of talking around strategy, but to my mind, the most essential strategic work has just had a few key elements. Where are we today? First question, where are we today? And I've been in organisations in different places where you can spend an endless amount of time just trying to agree on where exactly are we. And I think today's conversation is an opportunity to reflect on where we are 4 years into One Sydney, Many People. What have we achieved? What have we got to show? What have we learnt? What does it mean to have got thus far? Then the second strategic question is often, well, where do we want to get to? What does a great future look like? What does great success look like? And then what are the steps that we need to take from where we are today to where we want to look like in order to deliver an improved future? And I do think the work that Lisa and the ISS team have led in recent months is very much this sense of to review where we've got to after 4 years of One Sydney, Many People, to think through what the future might be in a Wollonga world with the next generation of One Sydney, Many People, and then to ask the question, well, what does that mean for us? What does that mean for how we plan, how we organise, how we prioritise, how we fund this work to see transformational outcomes for students and staff and for the contribution the University of Sydney can make. I don't talk about it too much because it was traumatic, but I went through a very long process to be appointed Vice-Chancellor of the University of Sydney. It was in the middle of COVID, it took a long time. And I remember one of those moments was being interviewed by Lisa Jackson-Pulver. She was one of the people who had to interview me, and I remember being grilled by Lisa in a low-key, quiet but forceful and assertive way that you've come to know, love, know and respect, about what I made of One Sydney, Many People, what I made of the new policy that had just been launched, and what did this mean for the university if I was to lead the university. And I remember saying at the time, and I still think today, one of the compelling arguments behind One Sydney, Many People was its holistic approach to complexity. There are things obviously we know we need to do. We want to enrol more First Nations students and give them transformational experiences here at the university. We believe that talent is equally distributed in a society, but opportunity is not. So how do you find those students who may not have had the opportunity and open the doors of opportunity that exist in this place to transform not just their lives and life trajectory, but the life trajectory often of the community that wraps around them. And similarly with First Nation staff as well. But what I thought was very interesting, embedded in One Sydney, Many People, and I think transformational of the work that has been done in 4 years, is to think through what kind of organisation do you need to be successful around those goals. Why would First Nation students want to come to the University of Sydney, and what is there about learning in this place that would be compelling and transformational for them? Why, if First Nation staff have many different opportunities and places where they could work, why would they come to the University of Sydney? So it's not just a case of having initiatives and programs and schemes, but it's the thing about being the right kind of place. And part of being the right kind of place is recognising that whilst we may have been teaching and learning and discovering here as a university for 2 centuries, First Nations people have been teaching and learning, discovering here for 600 centuries. How is that reflected in the look of the university, the feel of the university, the curriculum of the university, the building of the university, the signs of the university? How is this deeper sense of context in which we work and which we operate that is fully reflected in the work that we're doing? And how is there the cultural competence embedded across the university that is necessary to provide the level of leadership that we need to be able to provide? All of these things have been central to the One Sydney Many People strategy that Lisa and the ISS team have led, I think. Sustainable long-term programs to see sustainable long-term growth in the attraction, retention and success of Indigenous students and staff, with a strong sense of place that exists here at the university. And I think what I would say, and I think we'll hear from Lisa in a minute, but I suspect what Lisa would testify is great progress shown, great work still to be done. We've come a long way. This feels to me as a work that has taken deep root within the university, quite broadly understood and appreciated at a UE level and a Senate level. It's taken root, but still more intense effort required to see the further improvements that we need to see genuine long-term transformation of this university and genuine long-term transformation of the opportunities that will be provided each and every year for First Nations students, for First Nations staff, and the contribution that we all make to be broadly part of the community. So I think today's opportunity to pause at the end of a busy year and reflect on progress and what we've learned and what we now understand will be a valuable investment of everyone's time. And in doing so, whilst there are other events in coming weeks where we'll be doing this, it would be remiss of me not to particularly thank Lisa for her leadership of ISS through the entire duration of this One Sydney Many People work, from its conception and development to the launch of the plan to the implementation of this plan, and for her own remorseless ambition for this university and how this university should be able to deliver far more effectively in so many of these important areas. It's been a very single-minded and purposeful act of leadership from Lisa, of great influence not just in ISS but across the University Executive, across the University Senate and spreading out across the university. And the hallmark of that achievement is what has been achieved through the first 4 years of One Sydney Many People and the preparatory work that has now taken place for the next iteration of this, which will roll forward next year as a new leader comes in place and takes the strategy, develops the work we've done now, and then thinks through how we bring it forward. So Lisa, on behalf of me and the University Executive, thank you for your work and your leadership, and I'd now like to welcome you to the stage to launch this task force meeting today. Lisa.
Well, hello everybody. Good morning. So, Uncle, thank you so much for acknowledging and welcoming us to this beautiful place of yours. It allows us to start the meeting well and to start the meeting with respect. The business that we talk about here in these rooms are so very, very important to who we are as a university. And I do believe that we often struggle with belonging on this land that has been a land that has always been a place of knowledge exchange. And it's a challenge that all of society here in Australia faces. And I believe the individuals in this room, plus many of our colleagues and friends and families and communities outside, will help us lead the way. So it is fitting that we meet on your land, Uncle. We know this country's always been and always will be a continuation for generations that will allow us all, hopefully, to become good ancestors as those who before us have become to us. This is a place of coming together, it is a place of sharing, it is a place of ceremony, and of course, today it's a place of celebration. It is very much an honour for me to be here standing, and a very happy duty, in fact, to help celebrate the extraordinary achievements that the university and you have led throughout the work of One Sydney Many People. I pay my respects to you and to your country for allowing us to be here and to do this work, Unc. Anyhow, I've got some really fabulous notes here, and the problem is if I don't read them, I will absolutely forget something important, so thank you. So, before we get to the hip hip hoorays and all the applause, it's fitting to consider the journey that's brought us here, because really we are making up for lost time. It was a very long time since the establishment of this wonderful, august organisation, before the first known Aboriginal people enrolled here, and before, of course, our very first known Aboriginal graduate, Uncle Charles Perkins, became a part of our alumni community. But this country and this university is utterly embedded in this country. We know that the Gaddi plant, the Xanathea, is one of 29 species across Australia, and we know that the people whose country this is are the Gaddi Gal, the people of that plant. And we know that across the university there are hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of those plants. Now, it must be remembered that they grow very, very slowly and sustain a history that I wish we could all learn from a little better from time to time. I'm told that they grow at around about 1 centimetre per year. So looking at the height of some of these extraordinary Gaddi, you can imagine how old they are. I've been reliably informed there are some Gaddi on campus that are close to 700 years old. That means they are BC, before Cook. I'm not going to go get a job as a comedian on stage ever. I just know it, but I just really, would love you to be interactive, because this is a bit of a tough gig for me today, and I'm sure you all know why. But anyhow, that tree is emblematic of this country. It allows us to reflect what it would be to age gracefully in place. It allows us to know that this is a plant that's sustained generations for a very long time. It was in fact the third largest export of the colony back in the day, because what happened is that the white fellas found out that the resin inside of it is very, very good for making sure their vessels remain watertight, or that it's a very good adhesive to repair tools. Where did they learn that from? Well, they learned it from the local people whose canoes did not sink, whose items were able to be waterproofed, and whose weapons were able to sustain long, long time without having to be remade or repaired. And that's just a few of the purposes of the Gaddi, but it is extremely fire repelling and fire resistant, and science has shared with us a story that a lot of Aboriginal people know about the Gaddi on their countries, and they've all got different names across Australia, is that when a fire is close, not only does the smoke stimulate the Gaddi plant to release a type of medicine, but it also releases something into the ground that allows the ground to be very cool around the base of that plant. Now that's extraordinary science in any way you think about it. So the Gaddi can tell us a lot about the place that we live and work, and it can certainly tell us a lot about how to stand in respect for country, and that millennia of custodianship by the people of this place are a part of this place, do not be mistaken. For a long time, the university stood on this country without necessarily acknowledging the history, and one of the best things that we do know is the original seal for the university has the Gaddi plant on it, along with the Southern Cross. And that was the seal that brought this place into being so long ago. So when you think about it, in truth, this place is of the land. It came out of a desire and a need for the young colony of Sydney to grow its own doctors its own lawyers, its own educationalists, its own archaeologists, its own everything, because they felt that they were mature enough. Yet somehow, over the subsequent 150 years or more, I feel as though this place lost its way. And we're absolutely blessed now, and we have been for a little bit of time now, to be able to remind the university of the course that originally started about respecting country, about remembering country, and knowing that this place is of country. In 2012, many of you would have been here then, the university appointed the first Deputy Vice-Chancellor Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander Indigenous that anyone in the university sector had done. And the university came under some fire for that, reasoning that why would you when there's only such a small proportion of people? We can pop it under a diversity and inclusion agenda. It's okay, we'll look after Aboriginal people. And my colleague in the days basically said, no, have a look at what you've got here. This is not where we should be aspiring to. This is not where we should be going. And Professor Shane Houston created the Wingaramura Bunga Barabaru strategy, which also means thinking path to make tomorrow. It was a really important step in the university's thinking, and I believe it started a significant transformation which continues today. And as the Vice-Chancellor reminds us, our journey has barely begun. We still have a lot more to do. The power of any strategy is, of course, the accountability that comes with it, and the strategy meant, for the first time, the entirety of the university was responsible for the changes. It became everyone's business. The aspirations laid out in that very first strategy were, firstly, to become a uniquely Australian university, secondly, to better understand its own history and open the way for sharing stories, to create pathways for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander success in higher ed, and of course to strengthen the cultural capability of staff and students to create an environment where everyone can thrive. From these roots, many opportunities, directorates and programs grew. One is, of course, the National Centre for Cultural Competence, the first of its kind in the land, and one that, after 10 years, is growing stronger and stronger every day. Sharing stories and truth-telling, these things happen in the best spaces that are of trust. I would add to that of love and respect. To build a shared future together, we need to really understand who we are as a community, who we are as a university, and of course, in so doing, understand the history that's gotten us to this place. We really need to be ready to embrace the truth, to create the environment and cultural competence that is an utterly critical skill alongside with all of those important competencies that we have. Cultural competence is one of those things that people seem to think is a nice-to-do thing. It is not. It is a must-do thing. For us to be able to understand our own culture in place allows us to be far more empathic and respectful to those who are different to us. The Wingaramura strategy was ambitious for its time, and those ambitions that were laid out in Wingaramura were the beginning of a very new path for the university. It allowed the university staff and senior leadership to have conversations that had not been had before. When the time came to bring on a new DVC to lead the Indigenous Strategy and Services portfolio, there were a whole swag of new challenges for me to consider, and I was delighted to return to working to Sydney after quite a long break in 2018. My first step was to consider how to finalise the work of Wingaramura with respect and to prepare the grounds for what was coming next. In doing that, we together, the university community and our allies, created the Unfinished Business Action Plan, which was released in 2019 after extensive consultation. This plan revealed 4 pillars that would go on to become the heart of One Sydney Many People. And these 4 pillars are here in the banners that are beside the stage. These are Narrangun, which is around culture and community, Eora, our staff and our students, of course, Nara, education and research, the purpose of an institution like this, and Pimmelwan, the environment and a sense of place. We really wanted to create a place where the conversations can happen easily about where this place is and who we are as a proud, modern Australian university. I need to turn the page. It's slow today. Anyhow, it's been utterly a highlight of my career to launch One Sydney Many People in the day, and it was done during COVID, at the height of COVID. It was done in a physically, separated place where we had a tiny number of people to celebrate this achievement at the same time as we opened a brand new Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander student centre called the Gadigal Centre, which is just across the road. Since then, hundreds and hundreds of students have passed through our doors at Gadigal, and many more have come to events held in its beautiful courtyard. When we talk about belonging, it really does come from a place that you feel comfortable in, that you feel you can go to, where you feel that you're respected, where you feel you don't have to persistently share the story of what gives you the right to call yourself an Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander person. The Gadigal Centre is a testament to the power of relationships to foster success, and in fact we've got an extremely high success rate due to many of the people who are in this room now, and I'll point you out Jane Stanley as being our inaugural director of the Gadigal Centre. Well done. She'll go off and tell you it's the sunburn that's making her red. Anywho, today we've got more than 550 Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students enrolled who are identified on our data. Now that's a real achievement. It's the highest number we've ever had. It's a really big deal, and on projections next year it's just going up that way, so I think colleagues, you're going to have to work on easing up some more space for us over there across the road in the Woolly building, just saying. Anywho, so there's no doubt in my mind that the Gadigal Centre does serve a very important purpose, and it is a little bit different from any other centre across any other university here. You know, we went to great pains to make sure that we created something that worked in this environment, and we believe that we've done that. The work of One Sydney Many People extends to the development, of course, of cultural protocols, and I don't wish to gazump anyone, but this work is shaping the university for its next part of its development and its future. The cultural protocols introduced by Fisher Library, for example, were the very, very first time any academic library in Australia had done so. They usher in a new way for our university, as well as all other universities, to call on our fellows in higher education and the GLAM sector to consider how respect can be imbued into the foundations of all of our, now we're ready for the GLAM, galleries, libraries, archives and museums. Don't you love an acronym that works? I love that one. I wish we had one like that. Anyhow, the impressive work of the library, of course, operates in tandem with the significant work that our teams are doing in driving with our colleagues and friends in the Office of General Counsel to develop these ICIP protocols. We have a heads of agreement, of course, with Terry Janke and co, and these works started before my time with the work that was done in Western Australia with the Warburton Art Project. Any of you remember that? Yeah, a big shout out for the mob who were involved in that as well. It was extraordinary in the day. But shifting culture is not the work of a single strategy. It's not the work of any individual or any small team, but it's true that every strategy contributes to change over time, and this is one such time. One of the ways we've strengthened staff is through, of course, the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Employment Plan. This work is led by HR and myself as joint executive sponsors, and it outlines a really practical approach to how employment can bring the right people to the right place for the right roles. In so doing, of course, we can foster academic progression and professional development of mob with opportunities to thrive here at Sydney. The 2032 strategy emphasises the aspiration to be a better place to work and a place that works better. And I know that this rings true to many. It also means that it brings about an opportunity for profound and significant cultural change across the institution, and, of course, with that, growing cultural competence across the university. Central to the success of One Sydney Many People is the development of the competence-based community of practice, and this includes all of the staff across the university who have completed the Cultural Competence Leadership Program, led, of course, by our dedicated group at the NCCC and our wonderful Associate Deans Indigenous who work with each faculty, and many of them are in the room today, so thank you so much for being here and being a part of this wonderful story. I anticipate in more years to come, more staff will have high expectations of being able to learn more about the culture and contribute to the positive cultural shift that's happening. It's true that the culture of the university is changing, and we can certainly see it in how people expect to align One Sydney Many People with other strategies such as the sustainability strategy, just to name one. We can see it in the development of the Indigenous procurement strategy, including our partnerships with New South Wales Indigenous Chamber of Commerce and Supply Nation. We can see it in the award just last month to the SLIC team for excellence in community engagement as a part of Engagement Australia's Excellence Awards. I mean, we could list, and we'd be here all day, all of the awards and nominations that the work of you and of One Sydney Many People have been able to bring about. But, alas, this showcase is a chance for us just to have a little snapshot into some of the work that has been done, and the fact that One Sydney Many People is very much a part of who and what the University of Sydney is. From our student body to our staff and across every faculty, there are signs of growing understanding and celebration of what it is to be a university on this country, on Gadi country. Thank you for your time, thank you for your work, and I really look forward to seeing how you will achieve so much more in the coming years.
Thank you, Vice-Chancellor. Thank you, Lisa. Absolutely really spot-on reflections around the journey not being over. We have come so far in so short a time. So now we're going to take a bit of a look at some of those things which we've all been a part of. First way we're going to do is we've got a highlight video. And if I press this button, it should work.
One Sydney Many People was developed through an extensive co-design process where Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community leaders, university staff and students, senior leadership, alumni, donors, researchers, government, business, colleagues from many other academic institutions and our other important stakeholders were invited to participate in surveys, workshops, smaller group meetings, one-on-ones, and other ways to ensure that everyone who wanted to say something about the work of the portfolio had the opportunity to do so. Over the past 4 years, the One Sydney Many People strategy has achieved remarkable success, guided by a clear vision rooted in 4 key areas: Narrangun, or culture and community; Eora, or people; Nara, education and research; and Pemelin, the environment. This strategy has driven meaningful change, embedding Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander culture and knowledges and values into every facet of our work and endeavour across this university. I am incredibly proud of the faculties, the staff, the students, the stakeholders who have embraced this transformative journey and contributed to the wide-ranging engagement and lasting impact of One Sydney Many People. Our efforts span across every part of the university's endeavour. Research, curriculum, service, working with traditional custodians on cultural protocols, identifying Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander identified positions for more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff. Since launching One Sydney Many People in 2021, we established the Pro Vice-Chancellor Indigenous academic position.
A place of belonging for tens of thousands of years for the traditional custodians.
As well as creating a series of protocol across the university. Our work through One Sydney Many People is a shared effort, with key stakeholders contributing to all of the successes and embodying the true spirit of the strategy. As we look ahead to Wollonga, One Sydney Many People, we continue on a path that is sustainable, impactful, and most of all empowering. This work ensures that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are self-determined, empowered, and standing upon the shoulders of giants, our elders and our ancestors. One Sydney Many People has accomplished so much for our university and community, and I'm proud of the wide range of achievements we've seen. Guided by these 4 pillars, we continue to grow in numerous ways. For example, we've increased the number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students and staff, ensuring greater representation and diversity across the university. This growth has been supported by key initiatives, including the Gadigal Centre, which has become a vital hub for student support and cultural connection, empowering our students to thrive academically and personally. In addition to this, we've expanded our scholarship offerings, providing more students with the financial backing that they need to be able to pursue their education and achieve their goals. Our partnerships with external organisations and communities have also deepened, creating mutually beneficial relationships that amplify the impact of our work. These collaborations have enriched our students' learning experience and furthered our commitment to supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities through education and cultural exchange. Each of these accomplishments is a testament to the strength and vision of One Sydney Many People, and I look forward to sharing even more of these successes with you shortly. I finish now by giving a heartfelt thank you to all of you. Your dedication, your unwavering commitment as we continue together to build the momentum of what it is to belong on a country that's always been a place of learning and knowledge exchange.
Thanks, everyone. We're now ready to go for the first of our panels. And I'm going to hand over to Miss Jane Stanley, our fearless leader of the Gadigal Centre, who's going to introduce her panel. Thanks, Jane.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's lovely to see you all. Thank you, Alex. It's a really lovely welcome. For those that don't know me, my name's Jane Stanley, proud Wiradjuri woman, so my family hails from Wellington, New South Wales, not Wellington, New Zealand. And I am the director of the Gadigal Centre. And I love the Gadigal Centre and I love my role here at the University of Sydney. So I'm going to quickly welcome my panel, my fellow panellists. First up is Miss Luani George, Senior Manager, Indigenous Employment. Take a seat, any seat, Luani. Next is Miss Bonnie Cousins, Senior Director, Domestic Recruitment, Sydney Future Students. Sorry, Bonnie. And Jay Edwards. Jay is both a student and staff representative, so Jay's the Learning Officer at the Gadigal Centre. However, he has just got a secondment over to the business school, so congratulations, Jay, in a promotion, a HO7 role. and he's also one of our current students. So you'll see that there's another name up there, Charlie Jackson, who is also a student and staff member. She'll just jump in about 10 minutes. So I might get started. I'm going to sit down with my panellists and we'll just have a little bit of a yarn, I guess. Excuse me too, I have a bit of a sore neck, so I'm trying to keep my head straight. Okay, so the panel today, our panel is on Eora, so people, our staff and students. So a little bit about what we'll talk about. Obviously Lisa mentioned the establishment of the Gadigal Centre. The student journey. So a lot of the work that we've been doing is around, in the first we're only 3 years, or just over 3.5 years since the Gadigal Centre has been open. I have been in the role for 3 years, and Jay's actually one of the original Gadigal Centre staff members as well. So he's the only one that's left. I shouldn't say it like that. But he's the only one that's still, he was holding the fort there for a while, good old Mr. Jay Edwards. So thank you, Jay. But I guess what we're sort of talking about here today, we've been doing a lot of work on student engagement. Semester one, we'd have anywhere from 30, 40 to 60, 70 students through the centre on a given day. Once lunch happens, best way to a blackfella's heart is through lunch, food. So once lunch, we have a community lunch every week, and on those days we could have anywhere up to 100 people, including students and staff. And for us that's been a really big part of the work that we've done. I'm going to ask the panellists, I promise I'm going to get to you and ask you some questions, but I was just sort of told to talk about a little bit of insight from the centre, and I guess wanted to tell you a couple of student stories. So as a team, we've just got some new members of the team, but as a team we've really gotten to know the students, gotten to know who they are, and I guess that's why the students are coming through the door. And I can give you 2 stories, and I could probably give you 100 stories, but 2 in particular that really resonate with me. One student, he's in his first year, he's doing a Bachelor of Arts. He wanted to get into education, but didn't get through into education. So started in a Bachelor of Arts role. He's sitting on a distinction average. So lo and behold, next year he's going to go in and he wants to do Bachelor of Education, PDHPE, which I used to be, PDHPE teacher, and he's going to do AB studies as well. So that's one of the success stories. Another one is around one of our EBP students who's come back in her second year. She had a year off, went home to Darwin, and she's also now sitting at a credit distinction average. So they're just a couple of the stories that we can tell you. There are many more like that. And I really want to thank the staff. So I just really want to thank the staff at the Gadigal Centre for the work that they do and the work that they do with our students. So I'm gonna start off now and ask each of the panellists, and Bonnie, I might start with you. And this question I'm going to ask each of you. We're here to showcase the achievements of our people, particularly our staff and students. Can you please share a brief highlight or anecdote from the last few years that really highlights excellence in our community?
Thanks, Jane. So my role is Director of Domestic Recruitment and Access. It's my job and my team's job to go into high schools to raise aspiration and engage high school students in the idea and encourage participation in higher education. So I'm a numbers person, partly. In terms of highlights, we've seen continual increases in participation in our engagements and in enrolments of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students over the life of the strategy, which I think is something I'm personally really proud of, and I'm really proud of the work that the team's done in that space. It was also a really interesting time for high school outreach during COVID, particularly at the start of the strategy, because we weren't allowed to go into high schools, we weren't allowed to have kids on campus. So we had to come up with really innovative new ways to engage students in this space and try and build familiarity with campus at a time when they couldn't actually come on campus. So I'm really proud of the work that the team has done in that space. But a story that's really close to me is we actually, it doesn't sound good, but it is good, farewelled one of our Aboriginal staff members last week who started at the university at the same time as me in her degree. She was from regional New South Wales. She was one of 25 students to graduate from school to finish high school, and the only one to come to the University of Sydney. And she came here at the start of COVID, was in uni accommodation, got sent home, had to study online, became a student ambassador, which is a really important part of our program and the work that we do, and then later became a staff member in our team, so a full-time staff member. She started her master's this year, and she's gone on to a role that's related to her field of her studies. So I think that for me, that's why I do what I do, and just showcases the student journey right from that sort of engagement. Sorry, she did come on one of our residential programs. I left that bit out, but she came into one of our residential programs and engaged with the university before she was a student here. So it's really important to see the impact that those programs have, and then the role of student ambassadors throughout that journey as well.
Thank you, Bonnie. There are so many of those stories to tell, and I guess just highlighting that, what we really have to think about is the impact that then has, not just on that student, but on that student's community, that student's family, and even that student's school. So, and I think that's another thing, that's another key thing that we're starting to see, is we're starting to see siblings coming through, and also students from the schools that they're coming through as well. So that's it's really important work, so thank you. Luani.
Okay, so, mic is on. I think for me, I think supporting our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff through career development programs has been a highlight for me. Over the last 2 years, we've launched and developed our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander mentoring program, and also our Indigenous career and development coaching program. And we've had over 50 participants in the mentoring program. That's Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff and non-Indigenous staff, which is a really good way to not only network but build relationships across the university. We just had our graduation, I think, last week with that program, and one thing that I've really has been really special to me is that we've been able to involve regional staff, and since I've been at the university, I think sometimes we forget about the other campuses across university and other staff, and being able to get regional staff participation in our career development programs has been something that I'm really proud of, and I think our small team is proud to continue to support career development for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff, so yeah.
And the work that you're doing is so important, and getting more Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander, people working here. I like to think I think that what we need to even start doing, and here's me talking about what I'd also do, but is about building our own. So like at the Gadigal Centre, we're giving students the opportunity to come and do some work experience and do some casual work with us. And I think that'd be a really important part. I know one faculty sort of talked to me about how do we get more Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander people here, and I think that what we need to start doing is looking at the students that we have here. Ant's an example of that. Britt, Dahani, there's a few just sitting here, that have all come through as undergrads and done postgrad studies here, and now they're working here at the university. And what a good place it is to work. So I worked at the department for years, Department of Education, not going back if I don't have to. Okay, now I'm going to hand over to Mr. Jay Edwards.
Thank you. My name is Jay Edwards, proud Palo man from Central Tassie, and the Gadigal Centre Learning Officer. And I'm also currently enrolled in my graduate certificate for political economy. I think one of the big highlights that I've had... What? Oh, calm down. All right. Currently sitting at a HD average, but hopefully... Yeah. Hopefully I can... hopefully I can maintain that for the rest of my degree. I'm only one subject down, but a lot more to go. Yeah, I think one of the big highlights for me is going along with our Indigenous Nationals team. Indigenous Nationals is a sporting event through Unisport, and it brings in a mob from 31 different universities to come in and compete in sort of a round robin of different sports. And USyd really did show a lot of their sporting achievements and really showcasing that we are a very athletic university as well, even though I myself am not quite. But out of 31, I think USyd came 5th overall. And in particular, we absolutely dominated in volleyball. 2 of our students got awards for volleyball, one as the MVP, or Most Valued Player for volleyball, and another for the Spirit Award in volleyball as well. So sports is a really big thing for the Gadigal Centre and the university, and hopefully we can go even better and even greater next year in Perth.
Thanks, Jay. And I think that, I can't look at you with these glasses on, sorry. I've had to borrow Tim's glasses. I think that the other part of that part really was the community. Like it was, yes, they did really well, and that's the best result that we've ever had. But I know that a lot of the teams down there were talking about the community and how it was really like a family. And that's another thing that we're really trying to do. We're trying to build that community and make that family here in the Gadigal Centre, because majority of our kids now, so many more of them are away from home. So, it's a place away from home. It's a community, so we've built this little black community, little Aboriginal Torres Strait Islander, community, plus all of our friends and allies that come down within the Gadigal Centre here at USyd. Now, Luani, I'm going to ask you a question. So, Luani, in recent years, we've made concerted effort to not only increase the number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff at every level and function. What has worked as part of this strategy, and do you think we're gaining momentum?
You're really going to ask me that question, huh? You did. Look, I think, short answer, I think supporting the current cohort of staff that we have at the university has been probably the most valuable, because I feel like the staff here, through their networks and communities, have, I think that's where our outreach has been the most, where we get our bang for our buck. So over and I keep using the last 2 years because that's when the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander Employment Plan first started. We've really focused on supporting our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff network, which is called the Eura Network. And we've invested a lot of time and resources into providing an intersectional approach to the work that we do for our staff. We've focused on community engagement, so supporting communities because our staff are part of those extended communities. So going to, for example, the NAIDOC activities, just being there in the community, being present, putting names to faces out in the community so that they know that there's people like us that are working at the university and they can vouch for us. So I guess developing those relationships have been really key. Supporting staff through career development opportunities, but also through the Eura Network. So basically creating a space for people to come together, people to network, people to bounce ideas off. And in terms of, again, back to career development, providing staff with opportunities to further their sort of career growth through, being able to support staff going to conferences, or if they're doing research and just those things that may seem little, but they go a long way. And I think, the Eura Network is very connected. We've got some really great staff. There's a lot of staff here as well. And I just want to continue to be able to support them in making sure that the network is, a top priority of the employment plan, which is slightly, I know the question was around employment. but I feel like our cohort of current staff is a way of engaging the wider community, and when you engage the wider community, people get interested in the work that we're doing and, you know, interested in you know, being a part of the university as well, so.
Yeah, no, and I've noticed even since I started here 3 years ago, we've had a few roles at the Gadigal Centre, and the number of people that are now applying for those roles is definitely increasing as well. And you're right, because the people, you know, we talk to people outside and encourage them to go for jobs. And I guess the next thing is like, and I think you've talked about how are we engaging people to stay at USyd. So I think your Neuro Network does that. But I'm going to ask each of you, what makes you engage with your work here at the university and what makes you want to stay, Bonnie?
So for me, it's the people and the stories that they share, and seeing them, you know, I see them when they're young and like overwhelmed with university and navigating all of that and not knowing what they want to do necessarily. And the work that we do is, you know, a lot of trying to sort of pry that out of them, like think what interests you, what motivates you, what drives you, and watching them go through that kind of evolution to someone really determined and enrolled in uni and, you know, really enjoying it here. So I guess it's just that whole student journey and the passion that they have.
Yep, sounds good. Lawani?
Yeah, definitely engaging with our staff and seeing the work that they're doing, being able to showcase their work throughout. We've got a circular that we provide, and just being able to feel really positive and motivated through, you know, the work that our staff do. You at the centre, in your team. It's just, you know, it's so good to just, you know, be able to connect with different staff across the university.
Yeah, thanks, Lawani. And Jay?
For me, it's exactly what you mentioned before. It's that community building that we've really pushed for at the Gadigal Centre. I think for a lot of our students, they're not in community anymore. They're in a very sort of almost foreign place despite being in Sydney. And so I think the culture that we've really tried to cultivate in that community that we've built at the Gadigal Centre is definitely what keeps me here. And I think keeps a lot of our students here even after they graduate.
Yeah, totally agree. And for me, it's very much about we can increase the enrolment numbers. That's one thing, but for me, it's about making sure that we retain them and see them through to the end of the degree. So, you know, I always push with the staff that I don't want kids falling through the cracks, because all we're going to do then is leave them with more debt and no opportunity. So, you know, the work at the Gadigal Centre really is about making sure that once those students walk through the door, they're actually walking through at the end with a degree and with that chance to change, you know, their narrative. They can write their own narrative. That's very much what it's about. Okay, Bonnie, your work is largely about recruiting our students, particularly through outreach and program pathways. Can you tell us what success your summer and winter programs have brought, and reflecting on the term of this strategy, what works when we are engaging prospective students, many of whom are first in family?
Yep. So the Tuggerah and Gadalong programs are residential programs that happen usually in the school holidays, and they engage students from years 10 right through to year 12, and the content of those programs sort of changes as they go through that high school journey. And it's really about that immersive experience, building a sense of belonging on campus, showcasing the cultural support and the work of the Gadigal Centre, and equipping them with the information and the confidence to navigate university, because the whole application process is very overwhelming. So it's about supporting them to do that. And in terms of success of those programs, we are doing a little bit of follow-up with students who have participated in those programs over the last few years at the moment. We've had 447 students attend one of these programs since the life of the strategy. Many of them have attended more than one, and I spoke to a student at the last one who's actually been to 5. So, and he is super keen on Sydney after that. So that's one element of success. But in terms of the follow-up, from those that we've heard back from this process, 44% have come to the University of Sydney, 36% are at another university, and 6% are at a vet or doing an apprenticeship or a trade. So I think that those programs really do, I think that they're a real success story and really important part of the work we do. In terms of what works most, I think if I had to pick one thing that was the most important for those programs, it would be the role of the student ambassador. So it's one thing for me, middle-aged maybe person, to tell them about university life, but it's way more important for them to hear it from students, peers, people who may have had similar circumstances or situations and life stories, and can sort of bond over that student aspect. And I think that that's the most valuable thing from these programs. And then it's also our other partners that work on these programs. The Gadigal Centre, faculty staff play a huge role in those programs, community partners and high schools. So that's, have I answered the question? Thanks.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think, and just adding on to that, like when you're talking about student ambassadors, that is such a key thing at the winter and summer programs, because the number of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander student ambassadors has increased dramatically. So to have our students working with our prospective students, I think, is making a massive difference. So thank you. I was just trying to ask, how long do we have? I'm just trying to check. How long have we got? Still 5. Okay, so for those of you who don't know, Charlie Jackson is one of our students / casual staff members. So she's our events officer and played a massive part in our recent Gadigal Gala, where we had around 200 staff and students across the university, and what a night it was. So thank you to Charlie and the team again, but thank you, Charlie. So Charlie's also just come back from Port Stephens, that's right, where she went with Tilly, who is one of our students that just graduated on Friday. So they've had a weekend, so I'm going to ask you. You've just come in right at the perfect time. Charlie, what made you decide to study, and I know this is a good story, to study here, and what are the things that provided you the support to do it?
Hi everyone. I know we were just speaking about Tilly, and I hate to bring her up again, but and we were talking about student ambassadors as well, but I think Tilly and Leroy's in Melbourne now, he's graduated, but still a dear friend of mine. But yeah, I guess student ambassadors play a huge role in, motivating. I think Tilly's 3 years older than me. I hate if I say that. She's a little bit older than me, but yeah, she's been there my entire university journey. To have someone that I met and I didn't know anyone else coming out of high school, coming in here, it's very daunting to come in here, but to have someone and these student ambassadors that really care about how you're doing, not just academically, but mentally as well. I think that was a huge part of my motivation for coming to university. And Leroy, he was there on my first induction day for student ambassador. So I guess I was in a hard point of, figuring out whether or not I wanted to stay at university, but for him to come and chat to me just one-on-one and offer to go for coffee and to have those conversations just really, helped me make my decision to stay at university. What was the other question?
I'm going to go on to another question because you've sort of answered that.
Thank you.
Can you also tell us, that's all right, Charlie, can you also tell us a bit about your experience being both a current student and staff member? Does this give you a good insight to what our students want?
Absolutely. I mean, I've just joined as a casual staff member at the Gadigal Centre, but I've been a student ambassador for 3 years now. So I've seen that same student that's been there the last 5 times. I've been there 2 times before him, but yeah, seeing the students and telling them that it's actually a viable option for them to come to university, the same conversation I got 4 years ago, it's actually mind-blowing. You look at university as a whole and you look at the ATAR requirements and what everybody else is doing to get to university, and I guess we have different struggles as mobs, so seeing that you're supported in that journey, not just by students and staff, but then once you come to university that you are being offered a job and you're just looked at as equal to everybody else, it feels so scary coming to university in the Gadigal program and feeling not less than, but just, you just need that extra help to get there, but it's nice to know that everyone sees you as equal. And especially my job at the Gadigal Centre now, it's not just a job to me, it's my family. They keep me here and they keep me motivated, and seeing successful people around me, especially like black success, I guess, is just, yeah, it's really motivating and it just makes you want to strive to do more. I was only planning on doing an undergraduate degree. Now I want to sit my GAMSAT next year. Now I wanted to go into postgraduate medicine. So yeah, I guess. Yeah, I think I wouldn't have done any of that without the help of student ambassadors, without my friends, without the Gadigal Centre, definitely without Jane and Marley. I definitely, wouldn't still be here, mostly Marley. I definitely wouldn't still be here. So yeah, I'm very grateful, but you can still see that in the students now, and it's nice seeing little bits of yourself in each of the students and seeing them grow. It's nice.
And what message would you give your teachers back at you? I'm not going to mention the school, but what message, and this unfortunately is quite reflective of a lot of our students, so what did your teachers basically say to you? Because I know that young lad that I spoke to about last year was in a bit of the same boat, so the subjects that he was encouraged to do weren't conducive to what he wanted to do at the end of the day, which was education. So what message would you give your teachers?
Jane's
not rude either. Not rude.
Jane's referring to a teacher. She's actually our careers. She ended up being our careers teacher, but I ended up going to her. I was not the best year 11 and 12 student, but really who is? Grew up in a pretty bad environment. So I guess that's all she saw was my academic outcomes. And I went to her and I said, I really want to go to university. And she was like, so let's look at some TAFE options. And I said, oh, I don't want to go to TAFE. I really want to go to uni. She's like, well, your attitude and everything that you've got going on for you is not university level. And I ended up reaching out to Jane and just saying, I really want to apply. Is there any way? I don't think I'm going to get the ATAR marks. I'm really worried, but I really want to do this. And she said, yep. So I applied for Gattalong. 5 years ago now, I applied for Gattalong. I got in through the Gadigal program, and I actually saw her last year because the school asked me to come back and do an ADOC workshop, which is funny. They wanted help from me. So I did go back because I, regardless, think students deserve to learn and they have the right for that. It's not their fault. But I saw her and she's like, oh, how are you going? I said, really good. I'm 1 year away from graduating. And she was like, oh, what did you graduate in? I said, oh, I've got to have the Bachelor of Science and Health. And I'm looking to sit the GAMSAT. And she was so shocked. She actually quit not too long after that. So I don't know if that was because of me, but she did quit. So she's no longer in that role, which is good because I don't think she should be influencing other students that are in similar situations. But it's nice to see that, she's gone and my sister also and, the next generation can grow up without that level of judgment. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that for any other reason bar the fact that when our students come in, they've quite often been told those stories. So, yes, they need that extra support, and hopefully that wraparound support is what we're giving them down at the Gadigal Centre. So, Dr. Charlie Jackson, I'm never going to have to pay for a medical appointment ever again in my life. Got a few vets I'm looking forward to, Marley's got 3 legs now, so it's quite expensive, so happy, just going to make sure that I have lots of students in diverse things so that hopefully I won't have to pay any bills ever. Okay, one last question. I think we're about done with time, but I'm just going to ask Luani and Jay this one. Why is it so important that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people are engaged with higher education? And what do you think are the possibilities for MOB here at USyd over the next 5 years? That's just a quick one. Bonnie, you can answer it if you want.
Really quickly, I think, the diverse perspectives and experiences you get from having Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff in a workplace will blow your mind. We come from different walks of life, we offer different life experiences that can be really valuable in any line of work at the university. So I think investing in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff, whether it's through identified or targeted roles or, any role, I think that's the way forward.
Yeah, thanks.
I think for me it's all about networking. Maybe that's the business side of me coming out. But really having that opportunity to network, to engage with each other, that can then lead to further opportunities and further empowerment and self-determination for our mob as well, and a great way to connect our cultures together.
Thank you for those answers, and I think that what we just need to remember is cultural load. So if you're working in faculties and schools and you've only got 1 or 2 Aboriginal identified staff, remember that it's not not everything needs to be done by a person just because they're Aboriginal or Torres Strait Islander students, because what we should be doing is walking together, not just relying on our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander staff. So I reckon I've kept to time. I'm pretty good at keeping to time. Just like everyone to know that. So I would just like to thank, I'd like to thank everyone. I honestly, when I came here to the University of Sydney, I didn't think I'd be here for long. I was shocked when I didn't get in here when I came to university. I went to good old University of Wollongong. So when I ended up here, I kind of wasn't sure. I wasn't sure whether higher ed was for me or, deputy principal and then in relieving principal jobs and sort of on my way to being a principal was kind of the next, it's all I ever had thought of, because really I finished uni, went straight to the Department of Education and stayed there. But I did resign from my role last year at the department. My boss kept saying, "You sure you don't want to come back?" So she let me stay there for 3 years, but I have finally resigned. And I love it. I love it here at the university. I love the students. I love the staff that we work with. And I love the opportunities that it creates for students and staff. So I'd just like to thank everyone in this room, whether you're Aboriginal or non-Aboriginal, for all the support that you've given, both the portfolio and also the Gadigal Centre. And before, I know Lisa hates it when people... Are you over there, Lisa? I can't turn left. I'm kind of in a little bit of pain here. So I'm not going to turn right around. I had to move my seat. But I honestly, without you, I know that the Gadigal Centre wouldn't be open. And I want to thank the recruitment team that they do for the, prospective students. But I also want to thank my staff. So if my staff are in the room, I don't even know if they're all still here. George, I can see you hiding. Stand up. Who else can I say? Dave's there. Tim, where are you? Who else is here? Come on, stand up. Stand up. Jay, stand up. I don't know if anyone... Chassis, stand up. Come on, stand up. So I'd just like to call us... We're called the Deadly 18, and I'd like to say that now having... We can sit down, Jay. Now having, we've pretty much got a full staff as of next year, and I know that the team had a really successful planning day on Friday. So please get involved in what we're trying to do next year. Come down for a community lunch. If we haven't sent those things out to you, make sure that next year, if we haven't invited you to the gala, because it's like you're trying to remember who to invite, but please come to the Gadigal Gala as well. We'd love you all to come. We just want you to support our students. And I know that I've noticed in the last, 3 years now, when I reach out for a student, you flick off an email, and I flick off an email to a couple of people within the faculty or school, and I watch that email being passed between about 30, 40 people till I get that right person. But I just really like to thank the faculties and schools for the support that they're doing, because our kids do come sometimes, not all of them, but some of them have a lot are coming from trauma backgrounds, or they've still got family, family things that they have to worry about. I had a student last week, her boyfriend has just been, there's been so much suicide in the community. It's that sort of stuff that you have to take into account, and the impact that it has. Students moving off country. We had a student come down from Canamble with her 2 kids. Now, I just think that is just ginormous. Because I don't think I could come down with a 4 and a 7-year-old, move away from all of your supports at home, but she wanted to come down. She wants to get a degree, and she wants to change the life trajectory for not just her, but her kids as well. So just realise that the work that you do for our Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander students is not just for that student. It has so much of a bigger impact that you can ever realise. So thank you all. Have a lovely Christmas, lovely break, because I think we all need it. And I'm going to hand back to Carl, I think. My panellists too. So thank you to my panellists, Charlie, Bonnie and Jay. Thank you.
Thanks, Jane and panel. We'll keep the showcase moving in a little bit of a different format now. We've got a couple of presentations, and we're going to start with service learning in Indigenous communities. If we can get Professor Haswell and Sue Kenny up to the stage.
Okay. Good afternoon, everybody. Yes, so as most of you know, my name is Melissa Haswell, and on behalf of my amazing colleague right here, Suzanne Kenny, I would just like to reflect on just how energizing it is to hear Uncle Chicka Madden welcome country. It's been a constant for me for many years in Sydney. And also to say a huge thank you to our DVC, Lisa Jackson-Pulver, who had a vision of reigniting the Service Learning in Indigenous Communities program 5 years ago in 2020. And it has been the driving force for both Suzanne and I for the last 5 years. I don't think we've slept too much over those 5 years. But just to tell you really quickly, Service Learning program, we have interdisciplinary opportunities. Students come from all different faculties to listen, learn, and apply their knowledge to address priority challenges. And equally important, our second sort of coexisting aim, which happens magically together, is actually to enable those genuine aspirations and voices of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organizations to be heard. Just really quickly, our stats, because you know we're academics, we love stats. 240 students have completed SLIC over 9 semesters, and we think that that's 240 lifelong allies for Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. They come into SLIC. They come into SLIC knowing they want to do something, and they come out and they know what they want to do, right? Which is to work together to promote Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people. And we've worked with 4 regional, 14 local Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organizations representing 25 traditional owner groups around the country, and traveled widely and virtually during COVID. We didn't let that stop us. But we've gone as far north as Saibai Island in the Torres Strait with students, and along the central north coast of New South Wales, Palm Island, Cassowary Coast, Northern Rivers. And we really take these outputs seriously, and so do our students. So they don't just go on a holiday and have a great time. They actually produce really, really useful reports for our partner organizations. And they're being used in all kinds of ways, from strategic and operational planning, communications with their community and government, and stimulating new ways of thinking. So now I'd like to pass over to Suzanne to tell us about what we did this year.
Thanks, Melissa. This year, our partner was Girrigan Aboriginal Corporation, has been Girrigan Aboriginal Corporation. They're a wonderful organisation based in North Queensland, and they look after, how do I do this? Thank you. They look after 9 different traditional owner groups. This slide was prepared as part of another presentation, but Whitney Rassip, who prepared the slide, to talk a little bit about her organisation, as the CEO of the organisation has said, yeah, go ahead and use it today to help people learn a little bit about what they do. So the 9 different member tribal groups are Banjin, Jiru, Gidamay, Gulgabardan, Gulnay, Jidabal, Nwagi, Warragamay and Warrangu. And those 9 groups, our students have got to meet with the elders and the leaders of their communities under the umbrella, both individually and under the umbrella and leadership of Girrigan Aboriginal Corporation themselves. The slide explains a little bit about the organisation. It only touches on the complexity and the power of what they do, but it has an amazing story, and our students have been inspired by that story throughout 2024. Girrigan's has 6 main programs, and those programs are Process Unite, TUMRA, which stands for Traditional Use of Marine Resources Agreement. They established the first TUMRA in Australia 20 years ago next year. IPA, which is the Indigenous Protected Area Program. So under the Girrigan IPA, the traditional owner groups and the Girrigan Rangers and the elders who represent those groups look after the interests of and care for and nurture 1.2 million hectares of land and sea country, extending, you can see on the map a little bit maybe of just how broad that area is, but it also extends into the Great Barrier Reef, so right out to the outer islands of the Family Island group, as far as very close to Palm Island, almost up as far as Cairns, where other traditional owner groups, where their responsibilities lay. But the Girrigan are also, their stakeholders are more than 30, and they range in, so that includes their funding bodies and the different groups that they work with. So from the Australian government to the Queensland government to local councils, and bodies as diverse as the Great Barrier Reef Marine Park Authority, the Indigenous Land and Sea Corporation, the Great Barrier Reef Foundation, the Nature Conservancy, Fisheries Queensland, including the Queensland Fisheries and the Biosecurity Queensland, so they're 2 parts of that one department, and Arts Queensland, Australia Council, Fashion and Textiles. So I spoke about I mentioned 3 programs of Girrigan. The other 3 are arts and culture, so they have a wonderful arts and culture and keeping place, and their artists produce artworks that's, some of it is internationally recognised for that centre. They have an amazing ranger program, and they have a joint venture which is called Wabi Jananu, which is a joint venture where Girrigan has the controlling share, and it's a joint venture which has established native nurseries right across the lands of the traditional owner groups, and they're extending the range of those nurseries. Thank you. We're really proud of the work that our students do, and in this room today is Charlie Jackson, who was one of our SLIC students last semester. So this semester and last semester, 5 of the 550 Gadigal Centre students that Lisa mentioned earlier were SLIC students, and that was a wonderful experience for both us, for Girrigan, and hopefully for the students themselves, and they contributed to some of these amazing outputs or reports. This morning, I got a call from Whitney Rassop saying, when can we have the reports? We need the reports in our planning, for our planning workshops that are coming up this week. So they are very, very significant reports, very meaningful reports, and very powerful reports that are going to be that are already being used, and that they intend to use a lot to inform their work in coming months and years. Let me think what else I want to say about that. Probably can move on. But yeah, the reports that include the students have worked with the Junior Ranger program, an inaugural program, and over 2 semesters, and over the course of both semesters, students have worked in each of the 6 programs of Girrigan and contributed significantly to the development of those programs, and helped to address some very serious and pressing questions. And of course, we are still, as Lisa mentioned, we are the recipients of the 2024 Engagement Australia's Excellence in Community Engagement Award. And we think that, thank you. And we would love to share the video that was shown at the awards ceremony.
University.
That was shown at the awards ceremony. Thank you, everybody.
The University of Sydney is all about impact. Service Learning in Indigenous Communities, or SLIC, gives students the opportunity to create real and lasting change.
Since 2020, over 200 of our students have worked alongside 18 different Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander organisations. We've travelled as far north as the Torres Strait and North Queensland, and in New South Wales we've worked on the North Coast, the South Coast, and also here in Sydney and in the Blue Mountains.
I just think that SLIC's a great program. It really is a program which introduces students, whether they be Australian students or students from overseas and other cultures, to come and engage with Aboriginal people. The beauty about it is that through that engagement process, SLIC tackles some really big problems in our community, and we find a way to find a solution to how do we address those. I think that's the beauty about this program.
They come from all different kinds of backgrounds, and you know that they study in all different areas, so that they bring a lot of different skills to the table, or to our table. And so to be able to co-design these projects with the University of Sydney and then have such a vast range of students come from all different areas and help us to collectively deliver these projects and achieve what we're trying to achieve really benefited us.
We were doing something for an Aboriginal corporation that was responsible for 9 different clans. The work we did meant something to them and meant a lot to us too.
They have produced 24 reports over the 4 years that have gone back and provided those organisations we work with information that they don't have time to collect, but are done at a very high level because the students, they work together so amazingly, bound by this goal of doing their best.
I think we were very privileged to be welcomed onto their country. It's definitely something very unique that you don't get through any other course. And I think we need more of that. We need more of understanding culture.
Watching the growth of these students from start to finish, it's a real delight.
When I speak to students who have gone through a few years post-SLIC, they come back and they say, I didn't even realize at the time, even though I loved the SLIC experience, that we're a group of people, young people, coming together to change our world.
You took it. Adding up here.
All right, thank you very much. We'll now move over to the CCLP program. So over to Associate Professor Gabrielle Russell and Professor Azrini Wahadin.
Always worry I'm going to trip up those stairs. Do you want to come up and, we can do a double act here. Nice to see you all. We are here to talk about CCLP, and hopefully this thing is going to work. Hang on. The green button. Which button?
Big green one.
Oh, that big green. Don't you love academics who can't work the technology? Every time. So I just wanted to set a bit of context to the National Centre for Culture Commerce, although we are going to be talking mostly about CCLP, the Culturally Competent Leadership Program today. And Azrini did the program this year, so she's going to talk about her experience of it. But the National Centre for Culture Competence, as Lisa mentioned, has been around for 10 years. I did notice during that highlight video how many hair colours I've been through in those 10 years. Now I'm just going grey. I've been here for that entire time, and it's just sending me grey. And I was also going to take JSQ and get my team to stand up, but they all just walked out. So Imogen Barwick-Gray is the only one left. But for those of you coming to the conference later this week, you'll get to meet everybody. So yes, we've been going for 10 years. We're a really important part of the fabric of this university. You know, Mark Scott earlier said, what kind of university do we need to be successful in the context of one city, many people? Well, we need to be a culturally competent university. We need to have people who, and listening to Jane and the impact of the Gadigal Centre and all the work that's been doing around that. Well, that's not going to work if our staff are not culturally competent, if we're not providing an environment that is culturally safe, that enables staff and students to flourish. And that's the work of the cultural competence, to support people in developing those capabilities so that we can do all these amazing things that you're all working on. And many of you in the room have been part of the NCCC journey in different ways, either through doing our programs or contributing to our programs. There's a fair few people, those of you who've done the anti-racism MOOC, you'll note some of the stars that are just scattered through the room here. But we run the leadership program, which I'll talk about in a minute. We have the online modules, and they were developed back in 2017. They were launched to really provide a baseline understanding of cultural competence across the university. And thousands and thousands of our staff have done, I'd like to say all of the modules, but I'm going to say some of them. And we're just about to have a renewed vigour in terms of getting people to do those, because again, people say to us, well, what can we do to be culturally competent? Well, you can do that. You can at least get your teams to do the modules so that you've got a common understanding about what cultural competence is, and really starting that journey of that critical self-reflection and so on. And of course, we've developed those, an external version of those, and we have already sold quite a few externally, but again, that's a big focus in the next 12 months or so to get those out to people. So there's that. We have our in-person workshop programs that we do internally and externally, and we get about 12 to 1,400 people every year going through those workshops, so it's quite significant. We have 2 online learning experience OLEs for credit, 2 credit points each that hundreds of students have done, and then of course we've got our 2 free MOOCs, the Cultural Competence Aboriginal Sydney, which is looking at Sydney through Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander perspectives, not Sydney the city, not the university, and the new one, Race and Racism. But moving on to the CCLP. Okay, that's not me, that's the thing. Right. And so the idea of the CCLP is to help people understand what it means to be culturally competent in this university, in this place, and as leaders. And how do you be culturally responsive? How do we understand what it means to be on Aboriginal land as the oldest university and so embedded in the Western knowledge traditions? And how do we think about that differently? And, people say that it changes their life, but it's not just about changing individuals' life, it's about changing the institution. That we come at it through personal experience, but the idea is that each one of us has the opportunity to create a huge impact within this institution, and we can't separate the personal development from the institutional development. And so it's very carefully structured to look at what does it mean to be a culturally competent leader, what does it mean in each of our contexts to embed this into our work. And we always talk about sort of the impact that we have, because as the NCCC we're relatively small, and so we can't know every pocket of this university, but each of you does know your area and how best you can work to bring this into practice. And so, some of the impacts that we have are small. They might seem small, but the ripple effect is large. And some of them are big. So it might be, people run their meetings very differently in a more inclusive way that acknowledges diversity, that acknowledges that we are here on Aboriginal land, or it may be that they've created new positions that are identified, or new scholarship programs that are identified. The range of impacts has been huge and deep. But basically, and the other really important part of it is that people come from across the university. So every part of this university has people in their teams that have done CCLP, professional and academic. I was going to say men and women. We do have a gender imbalance. We have a lot more women doing it than men, but essentially that strength of bringing people together out of our silos to hear what people are doing, to hear about the challenges as well, because it's very easy to say, oh, we can't do this because of that system or this system, but actually to understand what amazing things people are trying to do to create change and how we can each support each other and learn from each other and share our challenges as well as our successes. And I think that's one of the most amazing things about the CCLP is that network of people that we've created that support each other, that still connect years after they've done the program, and that they're still working together and knowing, having a better understanding of how this university works and how they can bring in cultural competence. And so I might just hand over to you now, Azrini.
Thank you very much, Gabrielle.
Oh, sorry, I forgot all that slide. Never mind.
Thank you. I've been here for about 15 months. I came from the University of Warwick in the UK, and I must say being able to participate in this course was absolutely amazing. It was an invaluable experience, and it demonstrates a drive in our commitment to serve a diverse community. It allowed us to, especially foreigners like myself, to engage in a deep and meaningful way with the history of the land that we live on, that we work on, and that fundamentally that this is Aboriginal land. For me, the programme, and for others who I've spoken to, they believe that the programme achieved its aim to embed a cultural competence awareness. And as Gabrielle already alluded to, it's like a stone. This stone has been thrown into a river, an ocean, and it will ripple out. It will bring about change, and it will give us the opportunity to, I believe, to embody good practice in everything we do. Unfortunately, I have another meeting to go to at 2 o'clock, so I'm going to have to run across to that. But once again, I'd like to thank everybody involved in providing myself and others with this phenomenal experience to be able to make the University of Sydney a place to work and a place that works better. So thank you very much.
Thanks, Azrini. And I'll just finish up by going back to the slide. Of course, it was totally intentional to skip it so that Azrini could talk and then leave. So the program has been going since 2017, and we've had 660 odd people going through it. So as I said, it has touched every part of the university. But I just wanted to also mention our partners in doing this. So we started out the first 2 years were down in Yuin country at Murrumarung, and we worked with community from Wreck Bay, and it was quite a different experience because everything was we were residential for the whole program, and that was amazing. And then in 2019, Lisa Jackson-Pulver introduced us to the Warramai mob. And you know when your boss says, oh, I really wanted to go and talk to these people, and you're like, oh, geez, I hope they're going to be okay because, you know, the boss wants me to talk to them. And thankfully, they were okay. They were more than okay. And we've had an amazing relationship with the Murruc Local Aboriginal Land Council, particularly Andrew Smith, who's the CEO there, and Justin Ridgway, who runs the education program. And so now we started off 2 a year. We're now up to 3 a year. We've increased our numbers from about 60 to about 100, and that's been such a rewarding experience. And the way that the Warramai Local Aboriginal Land Council and the education team there, Justin and his colleagues and community, bring us in to the community, make us feel welcome, create a space where people can really explore the hard stuff. So not only do we have some amazing experiences on country, and yes, it does involve quad bikes, but most importantly, we get to go out onto those amazing sand dunes on quad bikes and have a cultural talk there, and it's pretty, it's a real privilege to be there. But also there's truth-telling, and there's some really important truth-telling as part of that program, and that shocks and upsets people, and of course I'm like, yes, this is good, because that's where we learn, that's how we hear things differently. And you know, people come away saying things like, it's the first time they've ever felt that they belong in this country. It's the first time they've ever heard the stories of the impact of colonisation and the ongoing impact. It's the first time that they've ever felt so welcomed into a community, and it's opened up their eyes, their ears, their hearts to a completely different way of being, and then they bring that back to work. And so it is, you know, we always say it's an immense privilege to run this program, but it truly is. There's nothing else like it. Yeah, that was... it's great. And I'll just end there, I think. So.
Thanks, Gabby. We'll now move on to a couple of our attendees from the university who went to the Garma Festival this year. I think Jane Hanrahan, you're up first.
I have to say, as Chair of Academic Board, I get to do some really amazing things. One of them was the CCLP. The other one was going to Garma. So Garma is a Yolngu Matha term for two-way learning process. And I was really honoured and privileged to be a guest of the Yolngu people at Golkara and have that opportunity to learn. And I also have to say, when I read the instructions, it said that we had about 7.5 minutes each, but I've probably got far too many slides for that. And how do I... Did that work? Yeah. I'd just like to acknowledge that we're on the land of the Gadigal people and pay my respects to elders past, present and emerging. So the first thing that really struck me was the country, the contrast, the amazing stark red colour of the land if you look south or west, but not just the contrast with what we have here at Sydney, but also looking out over the escarpment and up to the Gulf of Carpentaria, and you can see the difference there. It was just really amazing. So the other thing that was just so exciting was the role that dance plays in Indigenous culture, and I guess that's something that we sort of do know. The dances were absolutely deadly, it's got to be said, but it was so inclusive. Everybody was encouraged to take part, and it was so great to see the young children that were engaged with their culture, and they were learning by doing. It wasn't, oh look, this is a display and you're not good enough yet when you're older. They were out there, they were dancing, and it was amazing. One minute they'd be running around talking in language, switching to English, switching back, playing with the dogs, and then next thing they'd be back dancing with the rest of the dancers, and it was just really exciting to watch and to know that their culture is in such good hands for the future. There's the connection with the past and the present, and so the walkways around the campsite were lined with really large, and I'm talking about life-size, bigger than life-size photos of the Dilak Council, which is the cultural authority for the Yolngu people. And so it was really great. They were both past and present members, so that connection through the history was there. And it was the Dilak Council, which is the 13 clan cultural authority, that met with the Prime Minister in 2023 prior to the referendum. And the other thing that I take away was the absolute grace with which the people had taken the result of the referendum, but how they still wanted to walk forward with us to the future. I don't know whether this one's going to work. No, I don't think you can see the stars. Okay. Can you on the right-hand side? Yep, just. Okay, so all the women that attended had the absolute privilege of being welcomed by the aunties and attending a women's crying ceremony, which is held literally as the sky lightens from black to the very first bit of the morning. And the Yolngu women do a milkari, which is a deeply moving, haunting, beautiful cry. And they essentially chant in the new day, and it was really emotional and something that I will never forget. And at the end of the singing or the chanting, they said, and now we wait for the birds to sing, and a minute later they did. It was just something that was really something that I will always remember. There was also the opening of the Warrawa Sea Country Pavilion, and it reminds us that connection to country isn't just to land as we often think about it, but it's also to the sea. Warrawa translates into shade, and you can see the shade over the pavilion there, and that shade was made out of the ghost nets that many of the Indigenous rangers around the Northern Territory collect off the beach, along with a whole lot of other rubbish that we sort of let pollute the sea. But they'd turned the ghost nets into shade for the pavilion. We also had lots of opportunities to learn about and participate in different crafts, beading, basket weaving. I'm not very good at crafts, but again, it was just so gracious of everybody to give up their time to teach us these things. And the Gappan Gallery was also an amazing experience. The opening starts in the absolute pitch black, stars in the sky, and again the Yolngu women sing the Milkari, and then eventually the lights turn on and the art's displayed, and to me it was really sort of mixing the old traditional ways with the new ways. So all of the art is hung onto the gums that have been painted white, and you just sort of walk around in the space, and it's quite magical, and again quite emotional. Rather than just looking at paintings on a wall of a gallery, it really helps you to remember where you are and where that artwork has come from. One thing I was thinking about as I prepared this is how it's strange that we actually have to go away to connect with people that we work with. So I was there with a great group of people, some of them are here, and we were able to form those connections, which will help us work together now that we're back here. I think the last one, this is just before we went to the dinner, so this is all of the Garma gang from this year. So I just remember about how the Yolngu people are very good at seamlessly bringing together their traditional culture, the ceremony, the music and the dance, and mixing it with contemporary culture. And I really want to build on this experience in my practice at the university as chair of academic board, commit to ensuring that we continue to weave Indigenous knowledges and culture and practices through everything that we do. Thank you.
And Luani George, come on up.
Hi again, everyone. So, firstly, there's probably some similar photos because we all borrowed photos from each other, and so I just want to acknowledge in my short presentation, and I mainly want to show you photos because I can't really do justice in sort of explaining and talking you through the experience because it really is a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. But I just wanted to give a shout out to Cornell and Imogen and Laura and Tiana and Vicky and Jane and if I've forgotten anyone in this room, Gabby, for the amazing experience that I had with you guys on Yulong country. The photos that you took, I looked at my photos and I think there's like one photo that's actually mine and the rest belongs to the group. So I just want to thank you for that. Acknowledgement. Okay, so what can I say about Garma? Look, for me, my background is my mum is from Erub in far north Queensland in the Torres Strait Islands, and my dad is from Ghana in West Africa. And so for me, I've been in remote communities before. I've had the opportunity to I guess live, but just be in community, and it's a very special feeling of being, and I don't want to say on country because we are on country now, but being in a remote place, there's a specialness about it that I can't really describe. Being in Gama on Yulong country, it was mind-blowing, because for me, for someone that's Indigenous to be on someone else's country and being invited into that space, and being invited into that space, and for them to be so generous with their culture was just, it took me a couple of days, even weeks after the fact, to understand what I had experienced, yeah? As you can see, some of the photos are the same. So this photo, and I said I wasn't going to talk much, and I wasn't, but I just want to explain why I chose this photo. And as Jane pointed out, it was that they had these massive posters of photos everywhere, but each of those photos have a story, and one of the elders, well, many of the elders, many of the council members, each day would do like a tour and go through and explain every single one of those portraits. And it was just like, for me, I have a really short attention span, right? But I literally could listen to all the stories about how each of those pictures are all connected, whether it's through like brother or sister or mother or auntie, and it was just spectacular, like to just see their history in photos like that. And for us, like usually sometimes when old people pass away, like in my culture, sometimes like people are really funny about sharing photos, but for this to be displayed like this was just, for me, I was like blown away by this, and then listening to their stories and learning about them. The dancing as well, man, they can dance. Yolong Mob, they dance for like hours and hours and hours. And for me, I like this picture particularly because the kids were just so involved, like they just embraced their culture, like they could just dance constantly and just know it, and you could just see the pride oozing out of them, sorry. And I could just watch them for hours really. And they'd take turns, so these guys were sort of red, I don't want to say red clan, but they were in red, and then you'd have like a yellow clan and a green clan, and they would dance and then invite people into the space to dance as well. So it wasn't just us watching, they would be like, come up and dance with us. So it was really an inclusive environment, and yeah. This one, you've seen this picture, I know again, the ghost nets and the ranger program is a program all around Australia, and you know, them opening up this particular space at Gama was really special. So this picture is looking over where the ghost nets are, yeah, so when you step back, and all the way out there you can see the ocean, and it's just, it's a photo, so I can't describe how beautiful it is, but it was really, really special to be there and just be amongst the land. It was just amazing. Again, these are the portraits at night. So you walk around at night and these portraits would just light up. And it was just a really powerful place to be, where you'd see these photos and you'd feel not like people watching over you in a bad way. You know, like sometimes you walk around at night and you feel kind of scared. This was just, for me, these portraits were like sort of welcoming, like welcome to our country. Look around at our old people, we're here. And yeah, there's something special about these portraits. And yeah, this is it. These are just some of my favorite photos. The stars. Oh man, the stars were amazing at night. They had different tours. So as Jane mentioned, they did the women's healing tours. They did an astronomy tour, and I got to go on the astronomy tour one night, and they talked about their stories, their songlines and the connection to the stars, which is beautiful because I feel like each Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander community have their own stories about the sky and the connection to the land. And it was just, you know, they'd take you out. You'd have to walk for, it felt like a kilometre, and then they just let you lie down on these mats and then tell you stories about the stars in their language and how it was all, you know, how everything was all interconnected. So yeah, it was a very special experience, and I just want to thank ISS for letting me be a part of it. I also felt a sense of renewal as well, coming back and going, okay, in my space, in my small part of the university, how can I take the strengths and energy that I learned from Gamma to put into my work? How can I encourage staff? How can I encourage community? And you know, I think the Yulong have so much to share, and there's so much to incorporate into the work that I do, and also professionally and personally as well. Like, I think there's so many things. Now I look at my community and go, okay, what can we do that the Yulong do really well? So yeah, thank you very much. Thanks everyone.
Thanks, Lawani. We'll now hand over for the last presentation to Liz and Pippa from the library.
Hello, Yama, everyone. It's nice to see a lot of familiar faces. I'm here with my colleague Liz Litting to speak on behalf of the library and highlight just a handful of projects that we've been working on. It was very difficult to squeeze all of the work we've been doing in the last 4 years into 7 minutes. So we've just highlighted a couple of things that people might not have heard of or have heard of quite a lot. I'm a Gummaree woman I grew up in Tamworth, so not too far. And as of a month ago, I moved from working as the library's Indigenous Engagement Officer to now the First Nations Collections Curator role. So little shift, but thank you. Of course, we'd like to acknowledge the Gadigal people on which most of our library's services and spaces reside, and to pay respect to their elders past and present. I'll speak more on this beautiful artwork later, but this is a digital placemaking design by Jesse Waratah, and it connects the library with Gadigal country and the enriched cultural knowledge that has for thousands of years been embedded within culture and community. And I'll pass over to Liz before we figure out how to change the slide.
The big red one? Is that what they said? There isn't a big red one. The green one, yeah. That's the green one. There we go. Hi everyone, thanks for having us along today. After Lisa's presentation this morning, Pippa and I both looked at each other and went, oh, we didn't mention the protocols in our presentation. So we do have the cultural protocols in the library that were developed by the amazing Nathan Sentence a few years ago, and they do inform all of the work that we do. And they also really stress that this is not about doing individual projects, but it's about how do we change the way we do things day to day in the library so that this just becomes part of the way that we work. So I think the things that we're going to be highlighting today really speak to that in terms of sustainability and long-term rather than short-term things. So moving right along. So in the education and research space, I'm going to talk about some of the work we've done in the collections area, and then also things that we've done in the sort of indigenising the curriculum space as well. So in the collections area, yes, I think one of the things that we're very excited about is that we now have Pippa as our very first First Nations collections curator. And this is an ongoing identified role, and it's the first time we've had this role in the library, and it's really overdue, so we're thrilled. And I'd like to say thank you to colleagues in DVCISS, and in particular Jen Barrett, who really championed this for us so that we could make it happen. So this role, and Pippa, will be doing some work in the collections area, starting with things like the collection of Elkin, and looking at, assessing things like access protocols and connecting with community, making that a safer experience for them when they come to visit us. We're also looking at how we can get more Indigenous voices and perspectives and responses into the exhibitions programs that we do in the library, which at the moment are from a very kind of Western perspective, because that's what the bulk of our collection is. But yes, sort of getting a different lens on that is really important to us. Moving on to the really sexy subject of cataloguing. Our team led by Chingmi Lam have done some really great work with expanding our catalogue descriptions to include things like the IATSIS subject headings and also language thesaurus. So I'm not sure if you can see it on the slide, but highlighted in that yellow box, that's an expanded set of descriptors that we can now apply to our catalogue records. So it does make them more representative of the material. Chingmi and her team have also worked really hard to advocate and champion for these to be made available to other libraries that use the same cataloguing system as us, so which is worldwide. So I think we're really happy about that as well. And then finally, we've been developing new strategies for how we acquire First Nations authored content, particularly from community and through sources that aren't commercially available as well. Big green button. There we go. In terms of the Indigenising the curriculum space, our goal is always to partner with academics and units of study. We think that that's where things have the biggest impact, but some of the things that we can really control ourselves are our self-help resources that we make available to students. So we do a yearly review of all of those, and as part of our BAU process now, we look at how we can add First Nations content, even just in simple things in terms of the example searches that we ask people to do in these modules. So the screenshots here are from a legal research, introduction to legal research module that we have. And so this is where we've been pulling out things to do with native title as a way to expose people to those sort of concepts. And particularly we have such a large number of international students who may have never heard of native title. This is kind of like a way by stealth to get them exposed to some of those kind of concepts as well. And then finally, we also promote Caval's Indigenous referencing guidance for Indigenous knowledges as well through all of our learning experiences. So that gets people thinking about different ways or how they should be appropriately referencing and acknowledging First Nations knowledge if they're using it in their work. And I'm going to hand back to Pippa.
Thanks, Liz. Exciting library stuff to end the afternoon, but it is exciting. So this is sort of a lot of the work I was doing in my last role, and we do have some library colleagues that were a massive part to play in these initiatives. So throughout the last couple of years, the library has begun to really reshape our physical and digital environments to ensure we're representing Indigenous cultures and communities. To highlight a couple of particular projects, the commissioning of the digital place-making artwork and design, Walking on Country, by Gamilarey and Walbury artist Jessie Waratah, depicts a bird's eye view of the Gadigal coastline and connects the library to Gadigal country. And this piece aims to visually represent the library as a place that First Nations staff, students and community feel safe, seen and welcome. It's a very beautiful piece, so we do welcome you to come into Fisher Library. It's right in the foyer. Details of this artwork have been placed in our new Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander student spaces, which opened earlier on this year, as well as on T-shirts and other sort of signatures and signs for Indigenous staff in the library. And there are further plans to use elements of this right throughout our website, so we're ensuring that First Nations presence is really everywhere on the library's spaces and places. So as I mentioned, the artwork is in the Fisher Library foyer, and we have no time to speak, but there is in Fisher Library a new rooftop terrace, which we all have access to, and there's some beautiful gardens from Indigigrow that are on that rooftop, and we do have hopefully next year to have some more signs and markers of culture, so keep an eye out for that one. And lastly, another initiative to ensure that we're promoting culture and community is our library staff cultural experiences program. So this is something over the last 2 years I've developed, where library staff can come along to a series of cultural experiences facilitated by cultural knowledge holders and practitioners from around the Sydney area. We've been on walking tours in Redfern, Glebe, North Bondi. We've had bush plants and tea workshops. And a really important one was we had uncles who are survivors of the Kinchela Boys' Home come and speak and share their stories in a truth-telling session. So we're really wanting to continue this within the library's culture. And these events are a way for the library staff to connect with culture and to enrich their cultural awareness and the cultural competency that's already expected at the university, with the aim that it brings new knowledge back into their personal and professional lives. Just another side note, we also run a number of student engagement activities, and we've worked with lots of parts of the uni, particularly the Gadigal Centre, to make sure that students are connecting with culture and also getting support academically from the library. And a little highlight from the image is we had Uncle Jimmy Smith, who many may have met on his walking tours. He come in and run an Indigenous cartography workshop, which was a 3-hour session, and we had about 40 non-Indigenous and Indigenous students there to learn from him. So it was really, really special, so hopefully we see more of that. But yeah, Maribad, thank you for listening. This is a tiny, tiny, short little snapshot, but please come and ask any questions, and we're always happy to connect with people. So thank you.
Thank you to all the presenters for sharing what you've been doing for the last couple of years. Really lots of good, strong examples of things going on across the institution. We are running behind time a little bit, so we'll move straight into our second panel discussion, which is going to be led by Professor Jennifer Barrett. And her panel is Professor Jacqueline Troy, Dr. Michael Mossman, and Dr. Laura Case. If you could all come on up.
Hello. Jennifer Barrett is my name, known as Jen or JB. I want to acknowledge that I am a guest on this land. I'm Dunghutti from my mother's side of the family, from up around Kempsey Way and the Macleay River, and a place called Southwest Rocks and Stewart's Point, which is just north of there. So I want to acknowledge that. But what I also want to acknowledge is all of you here in the room sticking it out for this time of the day. So I'm really stressed about how we're going to fit everything in. But here we go. I guess in terms of the panel, so I'm joined here by Professor Jacqueline Troy, by new Dr. Laura Case, and also Dr. Michael Mossman, and wonderful colleagues. And there are many wonderful colleagues here in the room. And I guess it's really, again, really important to acknowledge that we wouldn't be sitting here, we wouldn't be talking about this strategy if you hadn't all been working with us along the way. So the work that we're sort of looking at this or just in this panel for 2 seconds is we're looking at NARA, so education and research. And what's really interesting about what we're talking about is how over the last few years, One Sydney Many People has engaged differently with the academic programs of the university. And we've not necessarily engaged with those academic programs as curriculum on one side and research on the other. What we'll hear this afternoon, I was about to say tonight, but I won't keep you long, is that they're intertwined. So how do we create a university that is about our students, it is about our culture, it is about the people we work with, if we don't have Indigenous knowledge and research? If we don't have, recognition within, the grounds and across the walls that we are on Aboriginal land, all universities are on Aboriginal land. So how do we sort of change the place? So what we've been doing as part of the strategy, which originally started talking about a couple of faculties, is really some cross-university work. So even what we heard about with Pippa and the work in the library, those protocols are linked to broader cultural protocols work we're doing across the university. The work we're doing around Indigenous knowledges is part of work we're doing around Indigenising a curriculum. So we're linking up with all of those partners across the university who are engaged with that to make sure we're doing this in the proper way, and to make sure that we're also bringing into play those issues around what kind of research we're doing, how we're doing the research, how we're doing the teaching, and how we're doing the learning. I think importantly too is the better we get at this, doing this work within the university, the more and more, the stronger we'll get in terms of working with community. We'll actually start to sort of really build more and more, sort of stronger links with communities, not just here, but right across these lands. So what I've got is, 5 questions for each person here. So you will be here till 7 o'clock this evening. And we'll serve dinner at 7:30 in the same space. So what I'm going to do is cut things a little short in a way. And if it's okay, I'm just going to ask each of you a question. And I'll start with you, Jackie, and if you can just sort of introduce. Now, Jackie, everyone knows Jackie. Now, Jackie, I'm probably going to have to time keep you. But we need to, we get on really well. I'll be able to do that. But we're sharing the panel here with 2 other colleagues who are going to talk about some research, but also obviously teaching and being a PhD student as well. But Jackie, my question for you is, in recent years, you've grown the Indigenous Research Network, and it'd be great to hear from you about what value you think that network brings to this broader discussion around building Indigenous knowledges and also building Indigenous research here at the University of Sydney.
Well, the Sydney Indigenous Research Network is a Teams group that we started in 2020 because everybody had to stop meeting face to face, and there were a lot of people who felt that they were very isolated. Our research by nature is, as we've heard from all the presentations I've heard, I'm sorry I was a bit late, I had another university meeting, but it's all connected up with community. It's very much on the ground. It's out there with people. Even the events we go to, like Gama, are very, this is on people's communities with people. So doing that kind of research when suddenly the entire world is shut down. We also do international Indigenous research across the university. So the network was a way of keeping that connection, also international connections. We even ran our Indigenous research event, which is something that has been on hold for the last year, and including this year because I've dealt with some personal sorry business. But we hope to do that again next year. So that's, I guess, the main effort out of the Sydney Indigenous Research Network. We held that online. We had an online singing, dancing, making, doing in research event. The idea of that is to perform your research. We heard how effective it is to perform your research, to perform and be involved in performance with the Gama Festival. Laura and I were saying she was performing at it. So that's one of the things about the network is now we can meet face to face. We meet each week between 11:30 and 1. Up in the Indigenous Research Hub office space in the quadrangle, so you're all welcome. You can also participate online through Microsoft Teams, and we've kept that going so that people in our more remote parts of the university on other campuses can also attend. We've got over 360 members now from all over the world, not just our university and not just Australia. So it's been a great way for people to collaborate on developing their research and grant applications and develop events and partnerships. And I hope that those of you who don't know about it do join up and become part of Sydney Indigenous Research Network. We're going to do a presentation next week about the Discovery Indigenous Research Grants from the Australian Research Council, provided by our office, our grants office and DVC Research. So it's that kind of thing you can do too, very practical, down to earth, how to win money to do your research. Okay, Kalan. So I should have said I'm Narugu from the Snowy Mountains in southeastern Australia. And in my language we say Khaju, which is hello, and I'm going to say Yara now, enough, okay?
Thanks, Jackie. It's great to hear. And I'm thinking of the next question, and I might actually go to you, Michael, and to just ask you about, or to reflect on how, increasingly we're seeing Indigenous knowledge is considered and explored through architecture, design and planning. But one of the things that we've seen recently is how, with the launch of the strategy, your faculty strategy, is that this kind of thinking, cultural methodologies are influencing not just research but also curriculum and also ways that the faculty works. Can you just talk a bit more, I guess picking up from what Jackie's talking about, how your research has also informed work around teaching and also your role in the faculty. Michael's also the Associate Dean Indigenous in architecture, design and planning.
Yeah, I think it really helps, that at the executive level that there's very strong commitments, and just acknowledging Donald McNeil in the room here, interim dean, and we had a dean previously, Robin Dowling, who really did put forward a strong agenda and brought a lot of people along with her on that journey. And in those conversations, there was an assertiveness from me that was very, in really putting myself out there, but I thought it's quite strong in what I have to offer. So there is, strength in culture and, the resilience in the challenges that we've faced over time, but also like how we, recognise like that particular, it's one word, NARA, and it's both education and research. It's not sort of, two separate entities, but they are one and the same. We can each learn from each thing, and each of those and how they are intertwined. And we start to then, with the conversations in the school around strategy, and one of the key takeaways from a leadership meeting that we had last Friday was, just propositions put forward about, sort of breaking down how we work as individuals, in our school, but to set up, what are the more collective, opportunities that we can promote and understand just by being able to understand what we're doing, each of us are doing, and then to find the connections between that could set up new innovative research. So I thought, that's something that was, how that has sort of transpired over time, and it seems to be quite a natural progression. But for me, it's like how all of these sorts of conversations and the relationship building, that's important. They all add up. And then as we move forward over the next couple of years, 2025, 2026 strategy, that there are strong content in relation to First Nations and culture, and that sort of integrated nature of research and education together.
I think that's not been a common approach, I'd say. I'd put it out there in terms of the university, but I think it's a really great example of what can happen on the scale there, but also where you do have people being supported to explore that relationship between research and education, but also just how we do things, right? It's not just let's have this as a separate project. And I guess I want to bring you in here now, Laura. As a student, like recently graduated student from the university, a PhD student who worked across music, but also Department of History, is that right? Yes. Is that, could you tell us a bit about, I guess, how that journey has been, and then now moving into a role within the conservatorium, moving into a place where you are teaching, using obviously your experience from research as well?
Yeah, it's funny being here because I started my PhD in 2020, so the first year of the strategy. And it's kind of been, I guess I just took a lot of this for granted because I knew no different. And so all the things that we've been talking about today, listening to the presentation from the Gadigal Centre, I'm the first person in my family to go to university. I'm from a rural town. I needed, support and people, and I've really benefited from so much that has been brought out in this strategy. And, as a student starting your PhD during COVID, it's pretty isolating because you're not doing coursework or anything. And so it really was just all me. But there has been a lot, like having the support all the way along has been really important, and that's really informed my research. And now moving into this teaching role, we're thinking a lot. I do a lot of the first year musicology courses, and so there's a lot of students, obviously at the conservatorium, who just want to play music. They don't want to think about music. And so trying to bring students along by embedding this really deep sort of Indigenous way of thinking and Indigenous knowledges has actually been really successful at the conservatorium. And we've done quite a lot in terms of the One Sydney Many People grants and things like that as well, because music is culture and culture is music. So it's not really separate for us. So everything we do is very embedded in this way of knowing. And so yes, newly graduated, but also new staff, and yeah, it's been a really exciting time.
I'm now sort of thinking, waiting for signs of when do we wind up, but I do just want to ask you each sort of one more question before we do. And it's about the future in terms of, so we've been working, we're the last session for the day just about. We've been talking about, everyone's been talking about the university, the sort of things we do here, around research, education, engaging with community, engaging with the world. What are some of the things you think we should be looking at in the next iteration of the strategy? What's going to look good in the years to come, from taking through those threads from the current strategy into the next one? Well, I've probably just given you a hint there. Which threads are we going to take through is part of the question. But yeah, Michael.
All of it. Yep, all of it.
All of it. Okay,
yeah.
There you go.
All of the categories.
Okay, there's note taking going on over on the left hand side. Jackie.
Well, I think we need to focus on the fact that we also cater for international Indigenous scholars at this university, undergraduate and graduate. And I think that engagement with that world needs to be better understood at the university. I've just had my first PhD student graduate, who's the first recognised international Indigenous scholar from North Waziristan, a place where he's not only first in family, but first in over 600,000 people who are in the most dangerous place on earth. So I think that's pretty massive, and I think it adds a lot to what we do at Sydney. I think what Laura's talking about is important too. Laura, you've been supported by research grants. I've worked with Laura on projects, and I think that also helps build people's futures. I think one of the things we need to do is make sure that everybody here who's doing an undergraduate degree has a chance to think about doing research, and make sure they're well supported in having research funding to do that research, so that they can engage in the marvellous things that, for example, Michael's talking about, and Laura, now that they're staff members as well.
I guess support is the thing that makes the biggest difference, I feel. I mean, yeah, the conservatorium is a funny building. It can feel a bit isolating because, I mean, there are other campuses as well, but we are part of the uni, but we're a bit removed. And so having such a strong support in this network and through the DVCISS, and I've done the Indigenous mentoring program, and having those things really follow through, I think that makes a really big difference for us mob. And we find strength in solidarity, and a lot of us aren't living on country, and so I think finding support together, that's the most powerful thing.
Thank you. And I guess, if I think about this as well, I would say truth-telling is really important. I think our institution sort of really growing some strength and courage around dealing with our own history, and the protocols and Indigenous cultural and intellectual property and Indigenous data sovereignty are really key to building capability, I think, in terms of the future for us. And I think that way we'll build the muscle for the other work to come. And part of that, and I do also want to acknowledge, the Associate Dean's Indigenous here at the University of Sydney has had a great allyship with non-Indigenous people, being in the Associate Dean Indigenous role, and for the first time in our history we will have the majority of those positions filled by Aboriginal people, and which is great. So there's a few people in the room. I think most of them were here. Everyone was here except for, I think, with the positions vacant in currently in engineering. We're about to advertise that. But those sort of networks are part of that building. I think the building of the muscle, but also the capability to deal with the truth-telling too, and building our sort of building and changing how the university does the education, research and learning. So
can I just quickly say as well?
I knew
just
you had more than one word.
Wholehearted. Just gratitude to the work that you've done in sort of galvanising the Associate Dean Indigenous network. I think that makes a big difference in how you're able to bring us together and we can all learn from each other, and that collective nature then flows into the education and research space. And also, no doubt, the leadership, of course, of Lisa's work over time. It's been really fabulous, and yeah, one that I'm always grateful for. So thank you, Lisa.
Yeah, thank you, Lisa. Because it is those sort of changes that have occurred in the last 3 years that are really making a difference. It's often the quiet work too, where people are meeting, where they're making changes to how we do things. But it's not to be underestimated. And again, I just want to thank everyone who's here in the room, people I work really closely with, but like so many people across the university. And I know that my interaction with you has come from being part of the portfolio, which is what Lisa has built over these last few years. And I think that I'm going to segue into, if Carl will permit me, segue into a vote of thanks to Lisa for all that work that she has done with, like you've heard a lot about different activities and so on, but these are all joined up. They're all joined up and the engagement is deeper than it ever has been before. So, you know, it's like every iteration of the portfolio will get stronger and stronger as we move into, you know, into new times in higher education, but be really excited about what we've done, that we'll be able to, the thread that we can pull through in future years, because I think irrespective of what goes on with you know, federal government and even, you know, funding and things like that, it's what we do, it's our relationships that are a real strength here, and the way we work together and connect the work that we've been doing, that I think not just the Associate Deans in the portfolio intersections with Jackie's in the research portfolio, those links have to be strong but also strengthened continually, and putting the effort into those relationships continues to be good. But Lisa, would you like to join us up here on the stage?
And can I just say one thing too, that Lisa is a...
Mike, no.
I was just going to say that Lisa is a great researcher in her own right, and I look forward to her having the opportunity to engage with some more research and build in what she's developing, which is her creative practice, which is something really core to Indigenous research everywhere in the world. So thank you, Lisa, for being a great research colleague.
Okay, now we're really going off mic, off-piste, what is it, P-I-S-T-E now, and I think we were going to have a vote of thanks, like from someone who had to leave. I'm sorry, Lisa, but so this is a long vote of thanks from colleagues here. And Alex, would you like to give Lisa some flowers? And I'll hand it to Carl to do, and Jane?
I just got caught up in.
Oh, right, okay. Anyone else? You can all come and join us.
I think we're just making it up on the fly here, so let's just keep going. No, you can stay.
No, I'm just hearing.
Look, I'd echo what JB had to say. I've been here since the start of this strategy being rolled out, and where we're sitting today is in a lot better place than we started, and that's under your leadership. So thank you, Lisa, for all your contributions, and all the best for the future.
And I'd also like to acknowledge and thank Lisa for everything that you've done for the University of Sydney, for the staff, for the students, both Aboriginal and non-Aboriginal. And Alex told me that I had to sing a song for you. I'm not sure what yet. No, I'm not. I'm joking. So thank you, Lisa. Honestly, thank you. It's been amazing working with you, and just the impact that the work that you have led alongside, you know, everybody that's here. I'd just like to really say thank you for that.
I don't know much more that I can really add to that, except for deep thanks. I remember back in 2018 when you joined this university, and when I was a young blood, and we had some really special meetings with lots of our donors, and you brought your whole self to those conversations, and I think you've done that remorselessly, as the VC said earlier today, and the work that you've led and what we've seen has taken deep root here at the university. So thank you, Lisa.
Sure. That brings us to the end today. So I think a few other people need to thank. The great folk who pulled this event together, right down to the presenters, the caterers. We had a little working group going for a while. So thank you all very much for pulling this all together. And also the AV guys, thank you very much. It's been a nice, tight show. Apparently this green button doesn't work very well. We'll look into that. But I hope, for those of you who didn't know a lot about all of the stuff that's in One City, Many People, we could speak about this stuff for days and days and days. There are so many really good things to be proud of. Thanks also to our wonderful AV team at the back here. I don't really want to see myself from camera, so can we edit me out? Thank you. But I love your work. I hope we all learnt something today, but also looking forward to continuing the journey with you guys into the future. Thank you very much, and have a good Christmas break.